Week 4 almost in the books. All 32 back with you again. Mike Giardi alongside Will Parkinson. We're starting to learn, I think, Will, about who's what in this league as we get more and more into this preseason where nobody wants to do anything, nobody wants to play. It feels like September has become the extension of the preseason, and now finally, a month in, starting to know who's good, who's not good, and things to look out for as we move forward.
Yeah, it's kind of this trend where like 1 week pretty much everybody sucks and everybody's awesome week to week. It truly is such a week to week league, and I think we all know that, and I think that's part of why we love the NFL. But I'm not sure I've ever felt more the way I about some people 1 week are amazing, 1 week suck more than this week, where people are ready to crown the Bills the best team in the NFL, and they get steamrolled. And this is 2 weeks after we were talking about the Ravens done, and or the Jets going to be the 1 seed, and then they lose by a 10-point, almost 10-point favorite to home to the Broncos. It's like this week, the Cowboys were going to be a team that could win the Super Bowl, and then they almost lose to the Giants, who now people think the Giants lost, but in New York think they can now make a playoff run. It's very confusing on the NFL, all 32 streets.
Yeah, no question about that. This show, by the way, brought to you by Prize Picks, the exclusive daily fantasy partner of the CLNS Media Network. And Game Time, best tickets, best prices to get you into any event that you want to see. That's concerts, that's games. We got playoff games galore. We use both sites, and we love them. Let's jump into it. You mentioned Ravens and Bills. I mean, I was geared up. My writing was done after the Patriots lost to the 49ers. I'm ready. I'm like, this is the game I've been looking forward to all day. 35-10 is your final, and other than a slight period there, it was pretty much dominated by the Ravens. And it was interesting to me because we've talked about Derrick Henry and like what's the fit like, and they seem more explosive when Justice Hill's on the field. Well, the thing that we talked about maybe when we previewed the Ravens in this season was the idea that sometimes Lamar's going to put the ball in the belly of Derrick Henry, and the linebackers are going to still be keeping their eye on Lamar. And the next thing you know, Derrick Henry's running by him. 87-yard touchdown run where he ran something like 21.29 miles per hour, which was the 4th fastest time of any ball carrier this season. Clinical performance from their run game. That offensive line starting to gel a little bit. It was just they physically bullied the Buffalo Bills in this game, and that's not something they've historically been able to do with Buffalo.
Yeah, it was interesting. I think we talked a lot, and I've talked a lot about the two things I was looking for in this game were an offensive identity from Baltimore, and vice versa. The Bills have not really been tested, I don't feel like, entirely too much, on the defensive side of the football.
Absolutely
in particular.
Right. Miami, Tua goes down. Jaguars just crap all over themselves in
the
Buffalo.
Cardinals are clearly kind of a lot more who I thought they were and who you thought they were than some of the people that were like clamoring the Cardinals were the next best thing after 2 weeks. And again, they're getting better. It's just, they are who they are a little bit at this point, still fully in a rebuild. But the Ravens have established, at least for right now, the way they're going to win football games. And this is the way I think they probably drew it up in the offseason. Play action pass, those crossers, those tight ends kind of working with it. The ball to some of the receivers for sure, but a lot of Lamar thrown over the middle of the football field, sideline to sideline. That 15 to 25-yard window is really where I feel like he's been the most dangerous. He'll use his legs when he has to, but they're going to punch you in the mouth with Derrick Henry over and over again, and they're going to probably have to lean on Derrick Henry a lot early in the season where, then once it gets cold and people stop wanting to tackle Derrick Henry, have fun tackling Lamar. And there's, these different, guys, and Ricard obviously getting the touchdown, even when Henry fumbles, it was kind of coming up all Ravens last night. I felt like this was the Ravens team that you probably felt like you were picking to go to the title and to go to the title game and things like that. And I felt like this was the Bills team that I picked to finish second in the division, where still really good football team, alien of a quarterback. I mean, the throw Josh Allen makes down the right sideline. Ridiculous. I'm not sure anybody else actually makes that throw. I don't know that he's the best thrower of the football, obviously, in the league. I think there's a couple other guys I'd rather watch throw the football, but when Josh has these moments, you're just like, man, and vice versa. The defense looked like Swiss cheese, and I cannot get over I think the thing that stood out for me the entire night was the reverse pass that Josh ends up getting eviscerated on. And it's the elbow that happened, I believe, was it 2 years ago? It was actually against the Jets, and Bryce Huff hits him, and the ball flies out. Josh felt like he was never really the same that year for a while. It was like felt like there was a bad stretch of football that followed that, and I'm really just curious. They've got two really important games. I feel like for Buffalo's sake, the next 2 weeks. Josh is going to play. We know that, and he's going to tough it out, and he'll never say he's hurt because that's who he is. He's had the hand thing all year, and like randomly he's wearing a glove now, and
handing it off of the other hand.
Yeah, but I just felt like, to me, not that you ever want to quit on a game, so just hear me out here, but like maybe it's like, hey, if we get something going and it works, then you try that. It was like you're down 20 plus points, and like any scenario where Josh Allen can eviscerate his elbow and or get his head taken off, probably not a good strategy. So as good as Joe Brady's been, that was the one thing that just stuck out for me from the game was Derrick Henry, and like, man, thank God Josh Allen's okay, because when he went down there and the camera was not on him, I'm like, dude, we just really lose Josh Allen for the year.
Right.
Like, that's what I thought in my head.
Yeah, brutal hit, brutal call. Sean McDermott sort of called Joe Brady to the table afterwards in a typical Sean fashion, where it's like, we're going to talk about that. And it was like, yeah, you're getting to that point where it's me talking to my son. Like, hey, when you get back here with your friends, we're going to have a conversation about that, and we won't be doing that again. I just think, look, the Bills obviously have undergone a transformation defensively. Bobby Babbitt is calling the plays this year. Milano is out again. The two safeties are gone, obviously, Hyde and Poyer, and we know how important they were, even if they weren't quite what they've been last year. But to me, I look at the interior of that defense, and now with Terrell Bernard missing the last couple of games, and not that he's a big guy to begin with, they are so small on the inside. Ed Oliver's a good player. Ed Oliver's like 280. I think he's listed at 287. I've seen Ed Oliver.
Which means he's probably playing 275, 277.
Exactly. And so he's at the heart of your defense. Daquan Jones is not he's 300 pounds, but like some teams, for instance, Patriots, Godchau's 330. Like, they put this big moose in the middle of the defense. They don't have that. And then they're playing linebackers that are 220, 225. I mean, when you look at the 87-yard touchdown run by Henry and a lot more, they had, I believe, what was it, 280, 283, something rushing against them last night, that like they were able to bully them in the middle of the field. And quite frankly, even if Bernard comes back and he's the kind of player that I think he is, I don't know how you fix that, because if someone wants to do that to you, you don't have the personnel to be able to stand up to them and stop that. So
yeah, 271 on the ground.
Yeah, I mean, that's an outrageous number. I know we've seen some big spikes in running numbers this year, although I feel like the passing game, by the way, for all the people who want to get rid of cover two, the passing game's coming back a little bit here.
Mike, to your point, by the way, though, like, it's not that they ran for 270. It said it was 8 yards a pop.
Yes.
Like, it wasn't like I don't know what, maybe it was a Seattle Patriots game. It was like the Patriots had like 220 rushing on like 49 attempts. And you're like, all right, 4 yards a carry. That's good, right? But it's like, you literally ran the ball every play. This wasn't that. Lamar threw the ball 18 times.
Yeah,
like,
I mean, you even and it's one of those, I don't like to do it because it counts, but like, even if you took the 87-yard run out of the mix, they're still ripping massive holes and big gains and controlling the clock that way. And then I honestly, defensively, the Ravens, I give them a lot of credit because the Bills had been cooking and they made Josh play they made everything difficult for him. I don't want to say it was one of his worst games, although I know there's some numbers out there that are suggesting that it's right up there with one of the worst times he's had throwing the football. But I just think defensively, they were on. Guys weren't open. He was having to do a lot. And, they put themselves in a massive hole and weren't able to run the ball at all, with James Cook, who's been an important piece for them. So a little bit coming back to earth for them, but they're still a good football team. And as you mentioned, that's the Ravens team I thought we were going to have going into the year. That's the Ravens team that I picked to win the Super Bowl. So be interesting to see how each team sort of adjusts going forward. But clearly, to your point, the Ravens feel like they found an identity. Lamar's tweeting, by the way, I don't care how many yards I throw for, because there's that, like, is he going to be upset? No, I want to win. And that's the right thing to say. And I hope that he truly believes that, because he's been close a few times and he knows better than anybody what people say about him. Until he wins big in the postseason, his resume is incomplete. Speaking of resumes incomplete, let's move on to a game that I think both of us were incredibly surprised by, especially, Will, based on how good the Jets looked on that Thursday night against the Patriots, who conversely looked bad and continued to look bad against San Francisco. But like, it felt like in that game on Thursday, the Jets turned the page. Like, all the talk about what this team could be was starting to come to fruition. Well, they take a big step back. They lost the game at home to the Broncos, who it was 10-9 was the final. They allowed 60 yards passing in the game. 60 yards passing. Bo Nix had -7 yards passing at the half, which I think is virtually impossible. No, I did think it was impossible until it actually happened. And they still lost the game. I know you were there. So I'm just going to, the floor is yours, sir. Just vent, if you will, about a game that the Jets shouldn't have lost, and they're now 2-2 when, quite frankly, they should be 3-1.
Yeah, look, I think this was the opposite of the Titans game for the Jets, where I feel like the Jets played equally pretty bad in the first half of both of these games. But the Titans game, they kind of came alive. They made the plays when they needed to. They got in a rhythm offensively at the end of the first half and the beginning of the second half of that game. And they got out of dodge a little bit. And it's like, hey, we didn't look great, but like the NFL, you don't look great every week. Look, the Chiefs haven't really looked good once, and they're 4-0. That's what happens, right? You got to make the plays when they count. And look, yesterday, and it's not the weather's not an excuse, and I actually think it's one of the more annoying things that I saw yesterday from Jets coaches, players, kind of blaming the weather and things like that. Hey, we couldn't get rolling. Look, 10 days off, and all of a sudden going from when it's supposed to be 75 and sunny for the game, and you show up to the stadium, and it's like, hey, it'll stop raining by game time, and then it's just a monotonous, like, gross day out. Like, yeah, sure, like I get that. Maybe you sleepwalk through the first couple drives, and off a bye week or the mini bye a little bit, and it happens. And it's like, okay, but the defense came out firing. This wasn't the whole team was sluggish. The defense looked great. The defense got them, the ball in advantageous situations the entirety of the half, or the entirety of really the game until one bad drive. They fly it around. Quincy Williams was exceptional yesterday. I thought DJ Reed played his best game in probably, since the middle of last season. Like he was since the pre-concussion last year. I mean, he was awesome yesterday. And it just was the Jets defensive line got no pressure. They only had 5 pressures the entire game, which is unacceptable. Obviously, they didn't rush. They only blitzed 4 pretty much the entire game. They got back to what they had been kind of previously, and they had the QB spy with Bo Nix. And again, that worked, right? But the one drive it didn't work. There's a pass interference call, and 1 or 2 nice throws from Nix, and a blown coverage that ends up in a touchdown. By the way, I'm not sure Cortland Sutton was in on that, but the Jets, for some reason, did not challenge that. Generally speaking, the offense yesterday was putrid, and special teams was even worse. And I think what's frustrating is that this is a game that now that you've lost this, now you got to steal one you're not supposed to win, right? Now you got to steal one maybe, is it in Buffalo? Is it stealing one, maybe it's in Miami, maybe wherever it may be, right? Or, maybe it's this Minnesota game, which, right, going in, I think into the year, this was a kind of 50-50 game, 60-40 Jets, maybe. Minnesota's playing better ball than pretty much anybody in the league. So Rodgers was okay yesterday. He missed a couple of throws. He made a couple of really nice plays. They just weren't in sync at all. 10 offensive penalties yesterday. And it's not like it was holdings and different things like that. I believe it was 6 pre-snap false starts. 2 from Breece Hall. Breece Hall played the worst game of his NFL career by far. He was horrendous yesterday. 10 carries, 4 yards, 2 false starts, and a drop. I mean, that's as bad as it gets. Garrett Wilson was totally out of it. I don't know what he had. One nice play. Patrick Surtain had him in hell. It was just, and the Jets got lucky. They had a chance to they had 1st and goal on the 1. They don't score. They, two runs in a row doesn't work. They run a play action to Solomon Thomas, defensive tackle Solomon Thomas, to get cute. Then they go for it. They get a false start. Then they kick it. And it just was disgusting. Credit to the Broncos. Vance Joseph was like, I'm going to pressure you every single play. And the Jets didn't cope. And, they tackle well in space and they get out of there with a win. And good for the Broncos. They're 2-2. But this is a horrible Jets loss.
Let me ask you a question. In sort of, I think we even saw it when they were playing better. It feels like, and it felt like Vance Joseph's just said, and Sean Payton, when they had this meeting before the game to game plan, they said they don't want to push the ball. So we're going to get up in their face. We're going to make it. We're going to be physical, and we're going to almost dare them. We're going to have so many people up close to the line of scrimmage. We're almost going to dare them to try to go over the top of us. And it feels like either they don't want to, or, and we talked about Devontae Adams a number of times during this podcast over the last 3 months or so, or they're missing that one guy that can do that for them. Did you sense that? Do you feel that? And is that a problem for this team going forward?
If I asked you of the players you could name on the Jets roster that got thrown a crucial third down, game on the line, back shoulder play, would you have guessed Xavier Gibson?
I
No,
definitely
you've
would not have. Yeah.
yes. Why he's right now, because the Jets are so dead set on Irv Charles, who had a really nice week too, blocked a punt. Irv Charles had one of the dumbest plays you'll ever see in an NFL game yesterday, costing the Jets 15 yards. I mean, blatant fair catch, ran through the guy's chest. I actually can't believe he didn't get thrown out of the game. It was as stupid as it gets. Gets a penalty every week. He has to be on the roster, so the Jets are now forced to keep 6 receivers, but one of their receivers will never play a snap on offense. And then they have Malachi Corley, who's a slot only, Xavier Gibson, who's somehow a outside end slot only guy. Garrett Wilson, Lazard, and Mike Williams. Mike Williams was awesome yesterday. He looked like Mike Williams is starting to. Him and Lazard have been really good through 4 weeks. Like I'll give them credit.
Yeah, I've liked Lazard's game so far, and Williams definitely showed up yesterday.
Like the problem is this, and I don't want to go too long on the Jets here, but the problem is the Jets are kind of built in really good defense, which outside of the Niners game, the last 3 games, granted who they've played, they're giving up 9 points a game. Like they're extremely talented. They're holding teams to crazy numbers. As we know, they're creating turnovers. And this is without Jermaine. This is without, Hassan Reddick and all these different things. So, and then on offense, it's Aaron. It's a really good offensive line that's been really good in pass pro. Specifically, yesterday was not good, obviously. And then Garrett and Brees being these superstar level players that I think everyone around the league thinks they are. And they've both been mostly pretty bad through 4 weeks. And on top of that, like the whole point is those guys are the supplementary pieces, the Conklins, Braylon Allen, Mike Williams, Lazard, and eventually, maybe other pieces. They shouldn't be doing your A-level work. And then the rest of the guys.
Yeah, it's supposed to flow through them, right? It's supposed to flow through those 2 guys. And then, oh, look, Lazard just caught a
Lazard's our 6th option. Like, that's
right.
Yay. Like, that's not Lazard's our go-to guy on third downs because Aaron doesn't trust, isn't trusting with Gary. They're just so not on the same page at all. Like, it's hard to watch, honestly, because all summer they could not have been any better.
Yeah, it's interesting, too, because I thought in the previous week against the Patriots that Aaron was almost making a point later in the game of I'm just going to throw to him because we're going to get this. And he went back to him, got the touchdown in that week 3 game against the Patriots. I'm like, all right, well, maybe they're starting to figure it out. And then to your point yesterday, and obviously Surtain is a monster, but like there's no flow and he hasn't gotten going. And if they're going to be what we think they're capable of being, he's going to have to be that. And Brees is going to have to be that unless, they decide that Braylon is worthy of splitting the carries with him.
He didn't get a single carry on the goal line.
Yeah.
Not a single one. I mean, he's 250 pounds. He runs extremely hard. Yesterday was one of those games that the excuses coming out of the building yesterday were extremely childish, in my opinion. And I feel like I'm probably being harsh here, but this is a team that wants to compete for a Super Bowl. And hearing about the rain and cadence issues, Rodgers, for all the things Rodgers does and says, he's usually pretty damn spot on the football side of things all the time. And I'm not getting the political stuff, obviously, but he was like, Robert Saleh was like, oh, we have a cadence issue. We might have to dial that back. Rodgers was like, cadence issue. How about we just hold guys responsible? We can be accountable here. That's a damn good quote from Rodgers.
Right.
And as much as everyone talks about, with the Jets, and we all transition here, but everyone, oh, what's the goal with Rodgers, et cetera. Rodgers changing that mentality in that building away from the oh, poor me type of crap and into accountability. If he does nothing else with the Jets, that is number one thing that needs to continue to change because, man, they got they have, Pittsburgh, who looked like crap yesterday, but they have Minnesota, Buffalo, and Pittsburgh the next 3 weeks before they match up against New England again. You got to be 2-1 in my opinion. I think you probably got to win the latter 2 games more importantly to win in a conference and in division games.
Yeah, for sure. It's you don't want to hear it. It felt a little bit like the same old Jets yesterday.
Yesterday was Zach Wilson. Did it rain because Zach was there? Did Rodgers lose the Super Bowl? I don't know what happened, but get Zach Wilson away from MetLife forever.
Oh, poor Zach Wilson. He's catching strays even when he's not doing anything. You want to talk about sort of bad excuses and conversations that are beginning to rub me the wrong way? Let's talk about the Patriots for a little bit. They got outclassed yesterday, which I think we all felt they would. They were 10.5-point dogs going in. They lost 30-13. Even if the 49ers were not at their best, even if the 49ers at various points tried to say, come back into this game, make this thing interesting, they're not talented enough to do it. But it is, there are a litany of excuses that come out, and Gerard Mayo in particular is fond of saying, I'm not trying to make an excuse, and then proceeds to make the excuse. So excuses are
no offense, and then
right.
says something offensive.
Right. So the excuses are, especially defensively, and you have to contrast this. And I wrote about it some after the game. Greg Bedard, my boss, he wrote about it as well. There's a contrast in the way Gerard Mayo is talking about the offense and Alex Van Pelt, the coordinator, versus the way he talks about the defense and his handpicked guy, DeMarcus Covington. When he talks about the defense, he never says it's a scheme issue. He always says it's the players. And in the last 2 weeks, including the debacle against the Jets, what we heard from both Mayo and Covington was this was an NEP, New England Patriots problem. They should stop doing the NEP thing, but I don't like it. But that this is a Patriots problem. This had nothing to do with the other team and how the other team played or how the other team attacked us. We just didn't do what we're supposed to do. We were where we were supposed to be. We just didn't, or we had the right call, but you didn't make the play. Now, Doug Peterson in Jacksonville is getting ripped over the last 24 hours for calling out his players. Hey, we can't make the plays for them. This is the exact same thing from the head coach and in the past week, his defensive coordinator. On top of that, he turns around and talks about the offense, and it has been 3 weeks in a row where, again, they've lost 3 in a row, where he has made a remark or two about the offense and the way the offense is playing. And yesterday it was schematically, we have to be better. Okay. I think some of that is true. I think Alex hasn't been great. He also doesn't have much to work with. The offensive line, as you saw in person in week 3, is bad and continues to have problems. They started their 4th left tackle in 4 games against the 49ers, Demontre Jacobs, who was claimed off waivers. So he's been here for a month. But he ascended to the throne yesterday because they have no one else, because they thought Chuks Okorafor could get it done. Chuks Okorafor has left the team. He's probably done with football and did not like playing left tackle. Caden Wallace, the rookie, who's a right tackle in college, they tried to make him a left tackle. That didn't go well against the Jets. He got hurt. He got hurt again yesterday as the backup. Who knows when we see him again? Vidarian Lowe, who was nobody's answer at left tackle, was the answer all summer because they had no one else. He's been hurt. It's like one thing after another, but he's talking about schematics and having to be better. Meanwhile, they don't have enough on that side of the ball to be that much better. And I just think he's distancing himself from Van Pelt, who was not his guy. This coaching staff, in large part, was put together by the general manager, Elliot Wolf, because Wolf has a network. He's been places. He knows people. Mayo's been in the league for 5 years as a coach. He didn't have those people. They interviewed 12 guys. Van Pelt was the last guy they interviewed. They offered the gig to Nick Caley, who was a former Patriot assistant who decided he didn't want to come and stayed as an assistant coach, not a coordinator with the Rams. So you're seeing this already like, well, it's not me as the head coach, even though every once in a while he does say it starts with me. It's always like a throwaway line at the end of it, Will. It's like, I just threw the offensive coordinator under the bus. I threw this, but it starts with me. Well, no, you literally put everybody else before you put yourself under there. So there's a lot of stuff coming out of there that I do not like. It feels a little dysfunctional already. And that should be a concern for Patriot fans because it was dysfunctional the last couple of years with Bill Belichick. And it feels like different guy, different personality, different way of doing things, but the same result. And that's sort of a fractured coaching staff and maybe mixed messages, both to the media and the press, and to fans, but what's being said behind the scenes, it's ugly. I just want to say, when we talk about the offense, it was a 53.8 pressure rate percentage yesterday, which is the second highest. There were 56 against the Jets. They're over 50% for the year on average, which is no way to live. Jacoby Brissett is in part responsible for some of this stuff, right? He's always been slow to get rid of the ball. He's one of the guys that holds on to the ball longest anyways. That hasn't changed, but now he's getting battered and it's only getting worse. They tried to speed it up the last 2 weeks, some quicker stuff. He only averaged 2.6 seconds to throw yesterday, and yet still a 53.8% pressure rate, 6 sacks. This team is broken offensively, just like they were broken last year offensively. And Drake May, I know he looms large, and he's going to eventually be the quarterback this year. I just don't know that Drake May is saving too much of what's happening. And again, I don't think Brissett played well against San Francisco.
Yeah, I don't have too much to add more than that, because I think
that was a good rant. I'm sorry.
It's a quality rant. The only thing I guess I'll say is that kind of one of my bigger fears, I guess, with New England at the moment is that there's a little too many cooks in the kitchen for me. I think sometimes there's not enough cooks in the kitchen, maybe in a Dallas or other places. But I almost feel like the power structure is a little confusing at times. I think, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, some of the stuff last year with Mayo and the like, don't blame me, blame Bill, or blame everybody but I don't know. There was a lot of that kind of felt like coming out of last year, and I don't know that it's changed too much. I just think if you're a Patriots fan and you're watching these games, you're looking for progress. And again, this is a hard part of the schedule. No one is telling you it's not. This was a really crappy 2 weeks, a really crappy 4 weeks to open the season. Like 4 teams that are expected to be playoff teams or borderline playoff teams for sure. 3 of them on the road. Like, I get all that. All that said, there's got to be more progress, and it's got to be. No one's asking this offense to be the 99 Rams. But like, no one's also looking for it to be an offense where like you dread them coming on the field. And without the expert amount of talent, I get that, but there's teams with bad talent, or there's teams with bad offensive lines that are able to do different things, scheme up different ways to get people involved. I don't know. Pop Douglas is really fast. Like, can you get him 2 or 3 touches in space and hope that maybe he makes somebody miss and cracks off a 70-yarder for you? And all of a sudden it's like, wow, now if our defense really does play as well as we think. I think sometimes the one other thing I guess I'll finish with just quickly on them, we can move to these other games, but like Mayo, we talked about Robert Saleh in the last thing. Robert Saleh, the Gus Bradleys, the Pete Carrolls, all these guys that have had a lot of success, varying obviously in terms of their style or scheme or any of these different things. Dan Quinn at times, it's like, my worry is, yes, your scheme's awesome, but sometimes you have to adjust it, or sometimes maybe you didn't make the right call there. And yeah, maybe theoretically this guy's supposed to be here, but like he wasn't there, and the talent you have to adjust to it. So I don't know. It's just something to watch, but I think there's got to be more progress on both sides of the football the next couple of weeks to make you feel a little bit better. Because I know Drake May is the one thing that we're going to talk about all year, and I get that, but it's not just Drake May. Like, we talk about this with the Giants. Yeah, Daniel Jones is going to be the talking point all year with the Giants, but like, they're not just a quarterback away. And the Patriots are not just a quarterback away from being good, and they need to show these other things around them that, yeah, if Drake May shows what we all hope he's going to show, that's awesome. And then it's adding pieces. But, the chances he's going to look like Jaden Daniels or CJ Stroud right away is probably not high. So for right now, like, can we see something other than just Christian Gonzalez and Ramondre being good players? Like, I'm just begging for anybody else to like show something.
Right, and Ramondre put the ball on the ground again.
He's allergic to fumbling.
Yeah, whatever. I think it's in his head now. I mean, he literally had 2 hands 100%. On the ball when it got popped out. It was, and he literally got yanked out. I want to leave you one last note, because I think even with the trading of Judon and the blood clots with Barmore that likely are going to cost him the season, and even the Juwan Bentley injury in week 2, which probably cost him the season with the torn pec, you still feel like there's enough solid pieces on defense to not be a bad defense. They've been a bad defense really the last 3 weeks. I guess I'll split the baby against the Seahawks, because they stopped the run, but they couldn't stop the pass. They couldn't contain Geno, but they weren't good at all against the Jets on either facet, and they weren't good again yesterday. And yesterday was chunks, big plays, explosives. Like, stop talking about like that you're good or you've been disrespected. Right now, you're not very good. I mean, that's across all facets, but don't try to separate yourself and say, well, we stopped them 3 times in the red zone. We had the interception, and we held them to 2 field goals. We still gave up 20 plus points, even without the pick 6 included. Like, you weren't that good. It felt like the 49ers were playing with their food all game. Like, yeah, do you want to taste? You want to get back in? Like I said, they didn't play great, and still they beat you by 17 points. They covered the spread, which is hard to do. Hey, I want to bring you a reminder from our favorite, Prize Picks.
You can now win up to 100 times your money on Prize Picks with as little as 4 correct picks. Hey, sign up today. Get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. Cook up hot takes with your friends and win real money this football season when you and your crew run your game on Prize Picks. This week on the Prize Picks football board, Justin Jefferson for more than 83.5 receiving yards and Patrick Mahomes for less than 267.5 passing yards. Download the app today and use code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Again, download the app today and use code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, run your game.
Speaking of games, let's get to this one between the Vikings and the Packers. And let me just start with this. The Vikings are now 4-0 after a 31-29 win, and the game was not as close as the final score would indicate, in my opinion.
No.
Are you buying the Vikings as a legit potential number 1 seed in the NFC?
No, but I'm buying that they could be a playoff team. I think I've been pretty consistent on the fact that, ever since our doing NFC North pod, like the Vikings have a lot of talent. I think they're really well coached. And I thought if Sam Darnold could play league average to above, the Baker Mayfield I'll just keep using that example, the Baker Mayfield Bucks example, who we'll get to it, I guess, as our other game here. Sam's playing unreal football, generally speaking. I mean, he's throwing for big time yardage in today's NFL. Touchdown numbers are high. Like, a little sneeze there, but look, I think they're running the football well, generally speaking. Again, they're running it enough that it can matter. Jordan Addison's back. The defense is good. Jefferson's obviously a stud. Blake Cashman, my guy, is just racking up stats. The Byron Murphys, the Harrison Grenard, Phillip. There's a lot of talent there. And obviously, Flores and O'Connell are awesome at what they do. Am I buying their number 1 seed potential? Not at the moment. I still got to see more. I think we got to get into middle of the season, the week 8, week 9, week 10 to the world where they'll continue to kind of stack some harder games. They've had a lot of hard games so far, which sometimes I feel like you're so up for the beginning of the year. We've seen some of the Vikings teams in the past start out stronger and kind of tail off, but this is a huge win. To me, this is a divisional win. This is one of your harder games. It's on the road. You end up getting to play against Jordan Love, which helped and hurt them. Love ends up with the most Brett Favre stat line of all time, wearing the Brett Favre jersey, the 4 touchdowns, 3 picks, 400 yards. I just think if you're a Vikings fan, you're like, man, this is what it's supposed to look like. And whether it's going to be Sam in the future or JJ or whoever it is, hey, with this coaching staff and the talent around them, we can win a lot of football games. So I think they're a good team. I think they're a team that should feel right now like, man, we keep stacking wins, we could get in the playoffs. And who knows, especially if they somehow find a way to have a home playoff game, it's going to be really difficult. But if they were able to find a way, that's a serious home field advantage. But yeah, I'm not really buying them as a 1 seed. I just think both these teams we watched yesterday will probably be playoff teams, but I'd much rather be, a Vikings fan than a Packers fan, at this moment, just because, again, Love's getting healthier, but a lot of the decision making yesterday was guy forcing it a little bit.
Yeah. So on the Vikings, I'm impressed, but I'm still sort of
skeptical.
Well, I'm going to look at Sam with that eye for a long time because he's never had sustained success. And even yesterday, there were a couple of moments where you felt like he was trying to serve it up again, and they've survived 4 weeks of that and thrived in many cases, right? I mean, I don't want to diminish what he's done, but they've gotten away with some things that he's done that haven't hurt them yet. And even yesterday, like I said, there was the interception and a fumble in the 4th quarter when the Packers did make this game that wasn't close at all into a ball game late. But I want to go to the Packers. I came on
to your
this
point.
pod,
Sam Darnold's on pace for 47 touchdowns.
I just don't feel like that's going to happen. I mean, and if it does, God bless him. Seriously, he's been through hell, so that professionally, so that would be great for him. But I'm not buying. But on this pod last week, I believe it was our Friday pod, I apologized to Matt LaFleur I've said I always thought he was a good coach, but I never thought he was that. But that what he had done with Malik Willis in those 2 weeks and crafting a plan with a guy they literally traded for because they didn't like their backup quarterbacks and then had to play him because Love hurts the knee in the opener. I was like, okay, he's better than I thought he was. And I thought he was pretty good, but I didn't think he was one of the guys that we'd be talking about as the elites and the McVays and that conversation. I put yesterday on him. Jordan Love was not good in the first half of the game, which, look, I understand he missed time because I don't think physically he's ready yet. And so instead of rolling with the hot hand of Malik Willis and just saying, what does this look like against Brian Flores? Like, we know what he does to passing teams. What would he look like against this, where your blitzes necessarily might not be as effective because we're just trying to run the ball down your throat with our running backs and with our quarterback, who's very gifted as a runner. And so I thought his decision to start Love is really what created a massive hole, because Love was basically, he was not good in the first half. And he started to get the rust off in the second half. And he did throw some crazy balls in that game, which I think he probably had to because they were losing at one point 28-0. But like, to me, that's mismanagement. The guy physically wasn't ready. You saw early in the game, he was short on throws, or for someone who's usually pretty accurate, was throwing the ball behind. He essentially got Christian Watson hurt with what appears to be a high ankle sprain on a badly thrown ball. Like, he wasn't stepping into it. Why wasn't he stepping into it? Because the knee doesn't feel great. I mean, enough that he played and ended up throwing, 300 something yards, 4 touchdowns. Giardi, what are you talking about? I'm just telling you, might have been a different game with Willis. Just the way they were rolling, I would have said, you know what, Jordan, we're buying another week. We won 2 games that we weren't sure we were going to win with a backup quarterback. And this one, let's just see. You continue to practice. You continue to feel better. And we push this thing. To bring him back against Flores' defense, I didn't think was a very wise decision. And they kind of got what they deserved, I guess. It's kind of how I felt. I don't know how you felt. That's how I felt.
Yeah, I thought it was short-sighted. I thought it was, oh my God, divisional game, we're rolling. Like, look, if we get Love back, look what's going to happen. And it's like, yeah, maybe, but Brian Flores pressures pretty much more than anybody outside of Denver. They blitz more than anybody. They bring pressure, and it's like, you know what you do when a guy's not healthy? You bring pressure. And yeah, a lot of quarterbacks getting guys hurt yesterday.
Yeah.
Mahomes tore his best players, offensive players, ACL, accidentally, obviously. But that was, there's just a couple of ones where it's like, oh, wow, that's new.
Yeah, certainly an interesting weekend. Certainly, again, it's the war of attrition. We love seeing games all the time. You and I, I'm lucky I got a press pass for a lot of these things. You got your season tickets. Mets are in the playoffs now, as we talked about before we came on the air. Yankees are in the playoffs now. Red Sox, once again, not in the playoffs. But so you're going to want tickets. But it doesn't matter whether it's pro sports, whether it's a concert, whether it's college games, because there's tons of good college football around. GameTime.co is the place to go. Absolutely fantastic site. They have a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets to see favorite teams play live even easier. Game Time Picks filters out the fluff to show only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create that account, redeem the code CLNS for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it, Will? Oh, it's game time. It's definitely game time. Hey, last game that we want to get to, and this wasn't on my when I was thinking about the games we're going to talk about. This wasn't on my list. Commanders, Cardinals, whatever. Commanders win their 3rd straight, 42-14. This was in Arizona. Jaden Daniels, the number 2 pick in the draft, is going off. 26 of 30 yesterday for 233 yards and a touchdown. Ran for another 47. And to give you perspective, over the first 4 games of his career, he has completed 82.1% of his passes. That is the best all-time 4-game span, not just for the start of the season. You just want to take any 4 games in a row of any quarterback in history. That is the highest completion percentage of anyone. That's better than Peyton Manning, who previously held the record, Drew Brees, Tom Brady, or Kurt Warner. Now, those are 4 Hall of Famers. I'm not saying Jaden Daniels is going to be a Hall of Famer, but this is a Hall of Fame start. I gotta tell you, I like his odds of being good, and I think we picked him as rookie, or definitely picked him as rookie of the year. I think I contemplated it. Maybe I'd pick Caleb, but you brought up like the counting stats. They're going to rely on him so much that he's going to throw 25 touchdowns and throw for 3,500 yards and run for 700 yards because they just needed him to because of the lack of talent. Dude, he's playing so much better than that because I think we thought there'd be interceptions, and he did throw one yesterday, but like, you thought it would be a 25 touchdowns and 16 picks type year. You thought there'd be a lot of fumbles. No, this dude is so calm, so collected, and he knows, Will, where he, or at least it feels like watching him, like he knows what he wants to do with the ball. How many times do we watch young quarterbacks and go, he's not seeing it?
Yeah.
The Drake May thing. We saw Drake May get the 16 snaps or whatever it was against the Jets. He made some nice plays. He also had guys wide open in front of him and didn't know what the hell he was going to do with the ball and didn't throw it to him or bailed out of the pocket. Like, that's generally what you get. This guy looks like, well, he looks like the guy who played 6 years of college football. He looks like he's a man.
Yeah, no, look, I just, this is what I guess my biggest takeaway from this game was. I think, again, I thought Arizona, they're a fun story and they'll have some fun moments. They'll be a fun, Sunday ticket watch, but I don't think they're there yet.
No. Not enough on defense.
Jaden's been awesome. No question about it. Probably better than what Stroud was, at least early on last year. Like, he's been that good. The Washington thing, and I won't belabor my point on this. I'm curious. Their schedule is a joke. Like, if you really look at it, they're home Browns. You'd pick them to win that game now. They're at Baltimore. That's probably their hardest game of the season. Home Carolina, home Chicago, at Giants. They get Pittsburgh at home, and Pittsburgh hasn't looked, at Philly, home Dallas, Tennessee at home, in New Orleans, but that doesn't really scare you. Home Eagles, home Falcons. Like, they could sit here and stack 6, 7, 8 wins before we're at the halfway point, before we're, into the cold weather games. So if Jaden keeps playing the way he's playing, I don't think this Commanders team's awesome by any means.
No.
But they're well coached. Their quarterback's awesome. And they have a soft schedule. Sounds a lot like the Texans last year. And again, I'm not ready to go there yet because it's only 4 games. The division's a mess.
Texans started 0-2 last year.
They did, and and the Commanders should have started 0-2 if the Giants had a kicker. So my point is, I think they're a team that we're going to pay more and more attention to as the weeks go on, and the more and more they keep getting hot here, and if they keep stacking wins, there's a lot of buy-in. Again, that Ravens game is probably going to be 3-2 Ravens, 4-1 Commanders, and that's obviously a big rivalry down in the DMV area. So super impressed with Jaden, super impressed with the start the Commanders have had, and again, hey, do you have the coach and the quarterback? And you might have a GM that made some, some shrewd moves to the Luvus of the world. And, Biotish is not necessarily the Bobby Wagner Eckler moves. That was more to fill kind of cap space. But I'm impressed with what Washington's done so far. Again, it's cautious optimism, but they have a lot of 2023 Texans vibes, just of awesome young quarterback, kind of defensive head coach that's kind of getting the most out of talent on the other side of the football. And, Terry McLaurin's been waiting for a guy to come in that building and throw him, throw him a reasonable pass once in a while.
He's probably one of the happiest people in that area because he's lived through a lot of crap. Your point is excellent about the schedule. Like, that's just one of those things where, hey, they've been a bad team. You get the 4th place schedule, and the way it's breaking right now, because we look at the schedule and say, they got the 4th place schedule, but then as the season starts taking place, and you're like, that team's better than we thought. That they're getting a schedule right now where you're looking at it going, no, they're worse than we thought they were, and Washington's better. Like Cleveland, I think we went in. Some people thought Cleveland was a playoff team. Some people actually thought Cleveland had a chance to be one of the better teams in the AFC. They look like they're dead man walking through 4 weeks. I mean, Deshaun Watson looks dreadful. It's just absolutely dreadful. So that game we probably would have looked at when you looked at the schedule, go, that's a loss. Now you're like, no, that's that. If you're playing the way you're playing and they're playing the way they're playing, that could very well be a W. So again, you start stacking up these wins and you get to middle of November and you're like, who's in first place in the NFC East? It's Washington, or who's right there? It's Washington. And actually, we talk about that. Philadelphia goes and lays another, like they're just Nick Sirianni should put the house up for sale.
Yeah, it's over.
Short that team does not respond. Like 1 week to the next, you don't know what you're going to get. They got smoked by Tampa Bay, like just sort of a shameful type performance. So yeah, it's why. And Dallas, what we got? 4 to 8 weeks on DeMarcus Lawrence with the plantar fasciitis injury, and then
Parsons got a high ankle.
It was rolling around on a scooter today, so like he's probably out at least a couple weeks. Like they could be in a big hole early too. Giants kicked themselves for that one because that's a game they probably shouldn't have let slip away on Monday night. So that's going to wrap up all 32. It's a good week, very good week. We'll be back with you on Friday to preview the Week 5 slate. And Patriots, they've got Miami at home. Jets are
in London.
Minnesota. Right. Minnesota. Guess who's going to see a lot of blitzes, especially after being beat up this week? Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah, Aaron Rodgers is going to see a lot of Brian Flores in his dreams.
All right, Will, good stuff. Thank you guys for listening. Reminder to like, subscribe, tell your friends, leave reviews, help us build the brand. Game time, Prize Picks, get involved. We make our picks on Friday for Prize Picks. Jump on board of that. My Brock Purdy, more than 9.5 yards rushing. That was a winner. Derrick Carr, less than 225 yards passing. Not so much. It happens. But anyway, we'll see you again on Friday.